think probably the biggest strengths of the neighborhood is there are so many different groups, organizations that are literally just within arm's reach. So many social service agencies, not-for-profits, organizations that are focused on advocacy, social justice, whether it's legal aid, reconnecting fathers. The Children's Museum is right here. I mean, Midtown Mental Health is just up the street. The school is right here. St. Richard's is just right there. TAB right over here. I mean, there are so many different organizations that focus on so many different aspects of support of the community that it's almost to the point where if you had a map and you could lay it out and highlight them, I think that probably more people in the community would actually be overwhelmed at the number of different organizations that are actually so close to them, that are involved in so many different aspects of quality of life.
Resource, really many resources. Beside that strength, it's just got my head to going about a resource map or guide for something physical to be produced. But beside that map is you interact with your students and your parents. Do you find that there is this particular need in the community that you can see over and over and over?
Definitely. Housing, adequate, affordable housing, and supports for that need for housing is probably a conversation that I end up having 3 to 5 times a day with families. In terms of whether or not where they are being housed is adequate, whether or not the rent that they're being charged is fair, whether or not the landlord is responsible with the upkeep and the maintenance, whether or not they accept Section 8 housing, the litany of issues that tend to wrap around. The quality of the home, kids with asthma and there's mold in the house, and who's responsible for cleaning that up, and how are they being worked with and supported. If a house gets condemned and the people who are living there are renting it, and now they have nowhere to go, and yet the landlord still has been taking their money and has not been reinvesting any of that money back in the property to rectify the problem, and the only real victim in the equation is the family and the kid that developed asthma as a result of being there. Though that is, issues around housing are huge issues, that we lose kids who end up moving out of the city or end up having to go live with aunts and uncles in other school districts just based on the fact that adequate, affordable, and reasonably priced housing is really becoming increasingly a challenge, particularly around with gentrification occurring. That it's a very real issue, a very real challenge that many of our families face.
Wow. Especially, I think in terms of gentrification is beautification, which is great, but to not displace the families, but to work with the property so that people can stay in.
And that's one of the really nice things that happened with the Brightonwood Martindale project. Mike Higbee, who was an individual that the Mid-North Neighborhoods Community Summit ought to invite into the conversation.
Mike
Higbee. He is a developer, and one of the things that he specifically did in the process of igniting the Brightwood Martindale development, no families were displaced in the gentrification process.
Wow.
Not one family.
Wow.
And yet their homes were beautified. He worked with those families to receive federal grants to be able to renovate their homes to look just like the brand new homes that were being built in the area to attract people back in. And those are the kinds of people that I think really need to be involved in the conversation, so that as this is going forward, that we don't do such a great job of beautifying the area that the people who are responsible for starting the conversation can no longer afford to live there when the work's done.
Wow, that's wonderful. I've done several 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 interviews, and that's a wonderful resource. I will be calling HIGBY.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to look him up. And, of course, talking about strengths and the resources so close together is a wonderful one, and the needs. Some of the opportunities that you see that could happen, you're here. I think wherever you live, you're here more than half the time.
Right.
In the course of any week, you're here. And so as you drive in, as you're here, as you just interact with other professionals, with other businesses, excuse me, what are some of the opportunities that you see that we could
Well, I think one of the big opportunities is where this conversation started. There are so many organizations that are all right here within the area, and most of them don't know the other ones are here.
True.
And they don't talk.
True.
They don't network with each other. Here in our school, we have a bi-weekly meeting. It's a community council meeting where we bring together not-for-profit social service agencies, law firms, people who have signed on to be partners of the school that are within a 1-mile radius of the facility. And we started those conversations about 18 months ago. And until we started those conversations, many people who literally work within 2 blocks of each other, who are doing very similar work, had never spoken to each other. Drive past each other's places of employment. We'll go pick up lunch right up here on 38th Street at Subway, stand in line right next to each other, and not know the other one was even there. So I think that one of the big opportunities is to even look at the idea of creating from this, this visioning summit, is a near North Side Chamber of Commerce in and of itself that really focused right here in this area, that brought those people together to be able to have conversations about economic development, to talk about quality of life issues, because there are a lot of folks who individually are doing a lot of really amazing things, but they're wearing down, they're wearing out, they're expending their resources or spinning their wheels, and feeling like they're not having the kind of desired effect that they could very easily have if, in fact, they were networked in with other people who are doing, if not the same work, the same kinds of work, and being able to interface clients across a spectrum of services. I think that's one of the big opportunities. I think another one is the opportunity to where you have this collision of neighborhoods, that are all intersecting together, but looking for a reason to become unified. Looking for a way to become unified. And that needs to be a unification that exists outside the realm of a crisis. Folks will come together if there's crime in the neighborhood. Children shouldn't have to be killed in drive-by shootings in order for people to get together to talk about improving the quality of life. Why do we need to wait for our kids to die before it becomes important enough for us to have those conversations? We ought to be having those conversations as a preventative measure so that the conditions don't deteriorate to such that happens, and then everyone wants to stand around and scream that we should have, somebody ought to have been doing something, when all along we collectively have the capacity to do it right now.
collective capacity?
I think the biggest threat is complacency. There are a lot of really great ideas, and people will get together and have a lot of really great conversations and feel good with the fact that they had conversations where no action comes as a result of it. And when you begin to have those kinds of conversations, and you begin to encourage folks to dream, and to really, suspend disbelief long enough to talk about what could be or what might be, and then nothing comes as a result of it, it's doubly painful than having to exist in the current reality of lack of resources and lack of all of the opportunities that we've had. Because the only thing more frustrating than having to deal with the fact of what it is that you don't have is being asked to dream about what could be and then no one following through on it. And that's I think is one of the potential threats that exists, is that because if that happens, then the next time around when someone really does want to be able to do this, the work is going to be even more challenging for that person, because there's going to be a great deal of cynicism. People will be treated with a great deal of suspect as a result of that. So I think that that's probably, one of the biggest threats. I think that another one is making sure that the ideas and the vision that gets carried out is actually the idea and the vision of the people who are going to live here, and not the folks who drive through here. You know, that a lot of really great ideas and pretty genuine thoughts come from folks that don't live here, don't understand the significance of living here, the history of living here, the context of living here, but think in a very benevolent way that they somehow ought to know better how folks around here ought to be living and what they ought to have, without ever talking to the folks around here and authentically listening to what folks are saying that they really need, what they really want, or what they really like to be able to have. Finding, and I think the thread of that is it takes time to build trust with folks in our neighborhoods and our communities for them to be so inclined as to authentically share with you. And you can't do this on a convenient timetable. So you have to come in, put work in the community, spend time so people see you and know you and trust you and believe you before you can actually authentically have that conversation. And I think that one of the threats is that it's just real easy for people to say, oh, well, we don't have time for that, but I think that these things are necessary because this would be what I would want if I were living here.
True.
And
easy way out.
The thread is, you know, we're not talking about helping people the way that we want to help them. We're talking about authentically providing assistance or providing opportunities to help folks the way that they really need to be helped.
True. I just wanted to mention to you, just thought about, I keep these in my purse. And every time I come across somebody in our neighborhood, it has taken a while to build enough, I don't even want to call it trust, but to build enough momentum to say, calm down and tell us what you think. This is our neighborhood. We've been doing this since early January of last year. And we just set up every Saturday. Whenever the kids in our eco camp are planting trees or whatever, we go knock on doors. Hi, we'd like to know if you'd like to have a tree. We will take care of it. You know, just, there were people who said, well, if I put a tree in my yard, who's going to... I mean, it was like, it takes, that is, I have so experienced that, you know, that people stop welcoming those who feel like, such as KI EcoCenter, we want to be part of the neighborhood, we want to give you collective voice through our center. There's a cynicism that has just come because of what you said.
Sure, because there have been too many people, you know, in the work that we do, we talk about them, and I refer to them as poverty pimps. You know, that people who came through and promised the world and really weren't really interested in doing much of anything except for figuring out how they could make a profit for themselves or make a name for themselves off of the hopes, dreams, and the backs of people who were left holding the bag at the end of the day.
And nothing happened. Suspend disbelief long enough to dream, and then nothing happens. That's so verbally right on target for an emotional state that they carry.
It is.
And I've been so there with, you know, I thought that people would just run into the center and sit there in front of the camera, so, yeah, this is our neighborhood, and this is what I love, this is what I don't love, and this is what we ought to do. No.
No, I'm not going to talk to you. Why are you here? What do you want? What's
Yes.
for you? Who's paying you? Whose
Yes.
time are you on?
So we've been here now for 2 years, and we've been out there enough, they see the young people out there enough that we are finally getting enough trust that people are coming in. But that's why we were so about this quality of life plan and being part of the collective voice. And so we're about the residents. I mean, beautification is just fine, but we are about the residents. How will the people benefit from this, and trying to get people to say, give us what you think so that we can take it to this effort. And then the work will start after that with putting the actual verbiage or some flesh on the skeleton. And so, wow, I mean, you know, as young people say, I see you, I just hear your words, and they just really strike a chord. Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add to what we've talked about today?
I think that if in fact this initiative, the kind of thing to take hold, I think that the Meridian corridor right here where we are, is one of the first places that investors, that community leaders, that potential, people from the outside who are really talking about authentic economic development are really going to look to. And that's part of it is, running a high school, that it's in the middle of all of this, and the conversations that we have with people and the conversations that I see being had. It's not enough for people to badmouth the Indianapolis public school system and say, oh, well, that's just the way that it is, when, we're authentically here doing real authentic work and giving amazing opportunities to kids. I mean, we have kids who attend our school here in the middle of the heart of the IPS district, and families are driving their kids in from Carmel, from Brownsburg. They're pulling their kids out of private schools for them to take advantage of opportunities that we offer kids here because they can't get them there. And they get them for free here. And the problem with it is that amazing things like the work that we're doing here, the turnaround that's happening right across the street at School 60, some of the phenomenal community involvement things that the Children's Museum has been doing get lost in this cloud of negativity because we want to keep condemning and talking about what's wrong with Center City, and there is no consistent, constructive message or medium of communicating out what's right, what's good, what's happening. You can talk about what young people are not doing right. Well, I've got 14 students in my school who are registered lobbyists with the state of Indiana. I have 16 kids who are deputized through the Marion County Sheriff's Department. Our kids are responsible for passage of legislation. When Center Township almost lost its branches of the library, those were my kids that showed up at that protest that stopped that from happening.
Oh, wow.
But these are the kinds of stories that don't get told. Madeline Albright came to our school and spent half of the day with our kids. Greg Mortensen, author of 3 Cups of Tea, here at our school with our kids. These are the kinds of things that we don't hear about, we don't see about, because we have a tendency when we look at urban areas and we look at Center City of urban areas, that it's much easier to talk about the negative and the destructive as opposed to the constructive. And one of the things that I would really love to see come of this is a very public and intentional medium for communicating what is good and what is working in our community so that we can begin to dispel a lot of the mythology about what's going on in the urban center of the city.
Really all of the good. I had told a colleague this morning that, people in social services truly need a patron. Because by the time you get through doing all of the CEO work for the administrative, to keep the physical, the facility in place, by the time you finish doing all that, and then you muster all of the rest of your energies to make sure that you're serving the humans that come to that facility, the social services part. And then the society puts on you, now go raise money to get it done.
Right.
Go raise the money.
Right.
So people in social service organizations so many times need a patron that says, hey, listen, let me see what you're doing. Oh, yeah, that's good work. Let me fund that for you.
It's the idea of looking at a group of people saying, I expect you to be the players, the coach, the fan, and the cheerleader, all at the same time.
And you've got to be extremely successful and serve a number of people, or else, we can't fund that opportunity. So, yeah, you're right. But a public medium of what's good in our community. Wonderful suggestion.
Just pursue it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Yeah, I knew it. We can do it. Make it happen. All you do is pursue it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it.